What happens when a man who has managed to bury his terrible past and embraced a simple life is faced with a dilemma?
Jenny's missing.
Will the darkness of his past overwhelm him, or will he have to take matters into his own hands?
How's it going, Cat? Getting rich contracting?
Well, you never call me unless you need something, so what do you want?
Probably Dimitri, associative.
That's a high-ranking dude, Cat. Mafia captain.
This is the recap of the 2025 Jason Statham movie, The Working Man. Join us in the story.
What was that?
Bluetooth.
Is that a grenade?
Mind your ears.
Levon Cade wakes in his beat-up truck, a makeshift home parked near a construction site. He quickly gets ready and heads to work at Garcia's construction site, where a co-worker hands him breakfast, a gesture of appreciation from the man's wife. Levon's quiet and dependable nature earns him respect from all his colleagues. After accepting the food, Levon gathers the team and organizes the day's work. He then goes to the site office, where he meets with Joe Garcia, the owner, Joe's wife Carla, and their daughter Jenny. Jenny gives Levon a stack of billing paperwork before turning to her father to request tuition money for her upcoming college semester. Although he was initially hesitant, Joe eventually agrees, revealing the family's financial strain. Back outside, Levon's attention is drawn to a group of men loitering near the site. Their presence was clearly not welcomed, and as their appearance suggests that they are connected to a mafia group. When they begin intimidating one of the workers, Levon steps in. When the men ignore his calm warnings, Levon is forced to go into action. In a series of swift, precise movements, he neutralizes the threat and immediately orders them to never show their face at the site again. Moments later, Jenny, who had witnessed Levon's display of skill, approaches him, and after handing him a meal prepared by her mother, she curiously asks about his background. She wanted to know if he has military experience, but Levon, reserved as ever, deflects her questions and urges her to keep what she saw a secret. However, Jenny remains intrigued and even presses him to teach her self-defense, an offer that Levon gently declines. Later that day, Levon visits his daughter Mary at her grandparents' house. The young girl was overjoyed to see her father and immediately rushed into his arms. However, Levon has limited visitation, which is restricted to just 2 hours a week. It is the result of a custody ruling following his wife's tragic suicide. Mary's grandfather still harbors deep resentment, blaming Levon for his daughter's death, which had occurred while Levon was deployed overseas. Despite the hostility, Levon cherishes his time with Mary, and he takes her out for dinner. He even presented her with a cherished photograph of her and her late mother. The gesture triggers some emotions as Mary confesses her struggles with being abandoned. Levon listens to her silently, and in the end, he offers his support to his daughter. Determined to reclaim custody of his child, Levon consults with his lawyer. But he is immediately told that the outlook is grim for him, as his unstable living conditions and the lingering accusations from his father-in-law cast a long shadow over his case. But still in desperation, Levon hands over his life savings to fund the legal battle and even manages to secure an apartment in the hopes of establishing a stable environment for Mary. That night, Jenny and her friends went partying at a local clubhouse. While there, one of the bartenders spots her and discreetly alerts a mafia member named Viper. As the girls continue with the party, one of Jenny's friends suddenly becomes sick after drinking too much and needs to use the bathroom. After Jenny escorted her there, she decided to give her some privacy as she stepped outside. However, while alone outside, Jenny is suddenly ambushed and kidnapped by a group of masked men. The next day at work, Levon notices police officers stepping out of Joe's office. Moments later, Joe and his wife eventually approach him in a panic and break the terrible news to him that Jenny is missing. The two desperately begs him to help them find her, but Levon tells them that he has decided to leave his violent past behind and start a new life afresh for his daughter. He even refuses the $50,000 Joe offered him. However, despite his refusal to engage himself, that evening, Levon goes to visit his old friend Gunny. He was a former military comrade, who is now blind in one of his eyes as a result of an incident where Levon had saved his life. When Levon tells him about Jenny's disappearance, Gunny doesn't hesitate to highlight how much the girl means to the family. The conversation reignites something in Levon, and in the end, Gunny tells him that they both know that he is going to take the job. The following day, Levon visits Joe and quietly promises to bring Jenny home. He tells Joe that he and Carla alongside Jenny had become like a family to him. So, he immediately begins his investigation at the bar where she was last seen. As he walks through the alley, he finds a broken piece of Jenny's necklace, which was proof that she was taken from there. So, he proceeds to track down the bartender at the bar, following him home where he eventually confronts him. Although the man denies any involvement, Levon sees through his lies. And within seconds, Levon had him cornered and tied inside the bathtub. He tortures him, and just when the bartender was beginning to loosen up, some of his associates enter the house. Realizing that this could mean freedom for him, the man shouted out for help. But before they could enter the room, Levon successfully uses the man as a body shield to block off the men's bullets, and then he swiftly takes them out. On their bodies, he finds tattoo evidence linking them to a Russian mafia, and then takes the cash on them to use as leverage. The next day, a group of gang members, including a man named Wolo, arrive at the house. He tells his men that he suspects that someone is hunting them. So, he quickly orders his men to clean up the scene, and they leave. Unknown to them, Levon was tracking them, and he eventually trailed them to Wolo's expensive mansion in the woods. When he arrives at the location, Levon observes from the shadows before making his move. He quickly infiltrates the building, after ensuring that Wolo was alone. He knocks him unconscious and ties him to a chair by the pool. When Wolo regains consciousness, he warns Levon that he's crossing a dangerous line. However, Levon tells him that he knows how dangerous he could be, but that he is not there about his affairs. Rather, he just wanted answers. So, Levon throws the money he had taken from the apartment at him and proceeds to question Wolo. When Wolo refuses to answer his questions, Levon cuts the rope tied to the chair, making him fall into the pool and drowning. Before his death, Wolo had revealed a crucial secret. He had mentioned a man named Dimi who was later revealed to be his own son. Armed with this knowledge, Levon sets out to track him down. Shortly after Levon leaves Wolo's residence, Yuri, a high-ranking mafia figure, arrives at the scene. Upon discovering Wolo's corpse and reviewing the CCTV footage, Yuri quickly deduces that this was not a random attack, but a deliberate declaration of intent. Dimi, unlike his father, is known to be carefree and impulsive. So, recognizing the potential threat, Yuri wastes no time in dispatching his men to hunt down the one responsible. Meanwhile, Levon, who is still determined to uncover the truth, reaches out to a trusted contact within the police. The officer warns him that Dimi is no ordinary criminal. He holds a prominent position within the Russian mafia, with a reputation for being ruthless and well-connected. But despite the risks, the officer provides Levon with a lead, an address to a bar tied to Dimi's operations. That night, Levon infiltrates the bar. After ordering a drink, he quickly draws the attention of the establishment's security. One of the guards approaches him and quickly sizes Levon up. Sensing that Levon's presence isn't coincidental, he escorts him to Dutch, a mid-level enforcer with significant influence in the underworld. However, the atmosphere quickly shifts in the room. Suspicion quickly spreads among the men, who begin to suspect that Levon might be an undercover officer. So, Dutch orders his crew to eliminate him. A violent fight ensues, but Levon, displaying his combat prowess, efficiently dismantles the attackers. Just as Levon is about to finish off one of the men, Dutch intervenes. He is impressed by Levon's skill, as he suspects that he had some military training, and then, he eventually offers him a deal. Levon decides to play along and requests to purchase drugs for a supposed client. Dutch immediately arranges for him to meet Dimi directly. Around that same time, Jenny is delivered to a man who had orchestrated her kidnapping. However, before he can carry out his plans, Jenny fights back and inflicts severe injuries to his face. Furious, the man orders Viper and his partner to take her away. The next day, Levon finally meets Dimi. Initially wary, Dimi grows more comfortable after verifying Levon's identity. Once satisfied, Dimi hands over the drugs. However, Levon has no interest in the contraband and disposes of it soon after. While he was at the bar, he had spotted Viper, a familiar face from the kidnapping photos. After confirming that it's him, Levon finally realizes Viper's connection to Jenny's abduction and immediately begins tracking his movements. However, his cover is blown. A member of the security team notices Levon's suspicious behavior and alerts the others. Immediately realizing the danger, Levon attempts a quick getaway on a motorcycle. But a relentless pursuit follows through the forest in the outskirts and ultimately, Levon is captured by Yuri's men and thrown into a van. As they drive off and threaten Levon, he seizes an opportunity to quickly respond and he attacks the men, killing the two of them, who were Yuri's sons and also the driver. Although the trunk crashes by the river, Levon successfully escapes and then tilts the vehicles into the water in order to erase any trace of him before vanishing into the night. Word about the death of his sons soon reaches Yuri, who becomes extremely furious. He immediately calls for a meeting for the Mafia Brotherhood, where he relays the threat Dimi poses to the group. He is eventually given a green light to approach Dimi by the gang council. That night, Yuri and his men stormed into Dimi's hideout as Yuri proceeded to question him about his involvement with Levon. When Dimi couldn't produce much details about him, except for the fact that he has Levon's driver's license, Yuri informs Dimi that Levon is the one who had killed his father, and that Dimi may be next. After leaving Dimi's place, Yuri's team immediately set out to find Levon, and they eventually stumble upon information about his father-in-law. The very next day, Levon is called to pick up his daughter from school since her grandpa didn't show up. When he does, Levon immediately senses that something is wrong. So, he quickly drives to his father-in-law's house, only to find it in flames. Realizing that he was still inside the burning building, Levon charges inside and manages to rescue him just in time. After this incident, Levon worries about his daughter's safety and he decides to take her to Gunny's place. There he leaves Mary under Gunny's care and then promises her that he would return to her soon. Before leaving, Levon arms himself for the battle ahead. Gunny showed him to his arsenal and allowed Levon to make his pick of weapons. Meanwhile, Jenny is being transported out by Viper and his partner. Demi had actually ordered them to take care of her after causing so much trouble for him already. But during the drive, Jenny seizes an opportunity after knocking down the front seats and makes a daring escape into the woods. As she arrives at a clear opening, she spots a police patrolling car and she frantically signals for help, only to discover, too late, that the officers are part of the gang. She is taken back to Viper, who quickly carries on with his plans to eliminate her. But just before he could proceed, Viper receives a call from the same man Jenny had injured. He requested that she should be brought back to him, and that he has unfinished business with her. His offer was too good to decline, so, without hesitation, Viper and his partner accepted the deal. Elsewhere, Levon fights his way into Demi's hideout and confronts him. With his life on the line, Demi reveals Jenny's location and tells Levon about Viper's role in gathering intel on the abducted girls. Now armed with the information, they arrive at the address Demi had given him, and Levon executes Demi before setting out to rescue Jenny. Meanwhile, back at the gang's base, Dutch discovers that Levon had infiltrated Demi's place, and he quickly sounds the alarm for his gang to assemble and launch a counterattack at Levon. But it's too late. Levon had already stormed the safe house, eliminating the guards one by one, and even when Dutch and his team arrived, Levon took all of them out, including Dutch. In the back room, as Levon enters, he shoots the old man on sight, and he brutally beats Viper before taking him out while Jenny manages to fight back, overpowering Viper's partner and killing her. After the attack subsides, Levon cuts Jenny's restraints as they prepare to leave. But before they can, Yuri's enforcers arrive and unleash a hail of gunfire. Reacting swiftly, Levon neutralizes one attacker with the Bluetooth sniper rifle gun he had given him. He then pulls the pin from a grenade and eliminates the second assailant with the explosion. With all the threats now neutralized, Levon grabs Jenny and makes their escape on a motorcycle. Meanwhile, Yuri reports the failed attack to the Mafia Council. However, the council leader orders him to stand down, emphasizing that the Brotherhood takes precedence over personal vengeance, and then announces that the devil has already claimed what he came out for. In the final moments of the movie, Levon reunites Jenny with her grateful parents, who express their profound gratitude for his sacrifice. The story concludes with Levon, Mary, and Gunny's family sharing a quiet lunch, finally finding a brief respite from the violence they endured. And that is the story of the 2025 movie, The Working Man. If you enjoyed this recap and would want to see more of this kind of video, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment for us. Until our next recap, stay safe.